Hey, and welcome back to Crusader Legacies. I'm Whitman, and we're about to move into the next film in our trilogy of the Hobbits, The Desolation of Smaug. This is the second movie in the trilogy of the Hobbit, and if you're going chronologically, this is the second film of the Middle-earth saga. The Saga of Middle-earth. Don't know if they have an official name for that or not, but anyway. So I'm going to do things a little bit differently. I'm going to try to condense this down into a shorter video where I just give some key points and important information that I would just share. You get to hear my thoughts on it a little bit more. And if you want to get a little more in depth, I will break it down into a greater context of the film, and so get into some spoilers and stuff like that. All right. So, in The Desolation of Smaug, we pick up on where we left off with the last movie with the unexpected journey. Bilbo Baggins is still with Gandalf the Grey, the wizard, and Thorin Oakenshield, who is the rightful heir to the dwarven throne of the Lonely Mountain, and as well as 12 other dwarves. Now, where we pick them up, where we left them, they had just escaped a pack of orcs, which apparently have caught up in time, and so they now make their way ever closer to the Lonely Mountain, leading up to a confrontation with the dragon Smaug in the Lonely Mountain. Now, the journey there is not easy, as they've discovered thus far, because not only do they have a pack of orcs still chasing them, they're bent on killing them. We end up finding out that they have issues with other creatures that they may encounter on the way, from spiders, elves and even some greedy political men that will try to take advantage of them, all for the sake of riches and greed. While all that's going around with Bilbo and Thorin and the dwarves going on their merry way, we've noticed that Gandalf separates from the group to go on his own path. That while everything that's going on with the dwarves and Bilbo, he follows another path to ultimately discover that all of these actions that he set into motion with this journey, with this quest, have been hastened and also been shadowed by a coming evil that could place Middle-earth into another realm of darkness if left unchecked. And so we follow Gandalf as he searches for answers. So, all in all, this is, again, it's an enjoyable film. In terms of ranking between the first film and this one, I probably would like the first one a little bit more, just because it felt a little bit more natural in some instances. I mean, some of the segues between scenes were a little bit jarring, but not too much. But it felt a lot more natural, and also it was a nice way to, also a bit of nostalgia that we got introduced to Middle-earth again. We got to see a lot of characters again that were in both The Hobbit, the book, and Lord of the Rings. And just as well, just kind of the inclusion of song and other fun sequences as well. But that's not to say that this one isn't bad. This one is still an enjoyable one. You just don't get quite as the merry, fun time that you do like you did in the last one. Because, I mean, with a name like Desolation in your title, you're probably looking at things getting a little bit more gritty, things getting a little bit more dark, and stuff like that. And rightfully so. Because it's filmed in a way that a lot of the sequences get into some very sketchy areas. You do get some glimmers of light and some color in there, which are used very beautifully, especially in one scene that's all in the trailers of Bilbo climbing up to the top of these trees, and you get to see the sky and these red leaves contrasting with these blue butterflies. It's a gorgeous scene. But then you get to see kind of where these elves are living, and even a little bit of kind of Lake Town, which is a settlement, a merchant town run by men. And you get some color, and you get to kind of see a little bit of diversity in that one, which is enjoyable. But contrast that with Mirkwood, the forest that the dwarves have to pass through, and it's dark and shady and creepy and trippy at times. The dwarves do kind of go on a little bit of a trip there. But also as kind of the ruins of Dol Guldur, which is the castle, the fortress this sorcerer that was called the Necromancer is dwelling in, and then ultimately leading up into the halls of the Lonely Mountain, the halls of Erebor, where the dragon Smaug is residing. And so those tend to be a little bit darker and not quite as welcoming per se as, say, the Elven Kingdom, or even Beorn, even a house of a man named Beorn who is a shapeshifter, who can shift between being a man and a bear. Anyway, so you get a little bit of contrast there. The visual effects are still on point. Some people will be turned off by the excess amount of visual effects, especially with something like the orcs again, which I talked about before, that the visual effects don't bug me as much because in some cases it makes sense because you miss the physicality and also the profiles and way that the faces are reacting and everything compared to the prosthetics, which can be a bit much and can be a bit restrictive, as well as to whoever's wearing the prosthetics, they could pass out from overheating. And yes, there are scenes in here, again, that do feel a little bit like a video game. So you have at least one, maybe even two scenes that feel that way. But ultimately, it all ends up with some really good scenes. Like if you're watching the extended cuts, some favorite scenes of mine would be at the house of this man named Beorn. A memorable sequence would be memorable, not in a good way and bad way, but memorable because it has spiders in it. So spiders are actually revealed this time. They're not just foreshadowing. They're actually there in the forefront, and I don't like them. Other sequence would be a barrel chase that goes as you ride down on the river with the dwarves trying to escape the elves and these orcs chasing them. And then ultimately leading up to in the halls of Erebor, where you encounter Smaug, which leads into probably one of the best scenes in all of the Hobbit trilogy, and in fact probably one of my favorite scenes in all of the Middle-earth stuff, and that's with Bilbo interacting with the dragon Smaug. So really, those are some of my favorite scenes, and they come straight from the book. Some little different lines there, here and there, but the main idea is still there. And I knew that some of the dialogue that they had wasn't exactly the same like it was in the book, but I didn't care. I was happy to finally see this dragon in flesh and blood and see him act and talk. Yes, the dragon talks. A lot of creatures in these Hobbit movies do talk. I mean, we got to see trolls talk, and now we got a talking dragon. So a lot of things could talk in the book, which they don't make everything talk in this. So those will be some things I like. Some things I don't like as much. They're trying to put in a little bit of a romance in there, which is very. If anybody's ever seen the Star Wars prequels, like Episode 2 and Episode 3 of Star Wars, you have an idea. You may recall some dialogue and some interactions between Anakin Skywalker and Padme in those first two movies, in the Episode 2 and 3 of Star Wars, and how cringy it is. It's not as cringy, but it is kind of cringy that they're trying to shoehorn this romance that doesn't need to be there, and it's just not that good at all. So that's one thing I don't like. And as well, I agree that I don't necessarily enjoy one or two action sequences being treated like a video game, where it feels very similar to like the Lord of the Rings video games I grew up playing in the early 2000s. So that's another issue. And just some other little characters in there that we get introduced to, like one man in Lake Town who has a unibrow. His name's Alfred, who's kind of just a yes man to the master of the lake. And I don't know, I don't like him, and I don't necessarily care for the master of the lake. I understand that they're supposed to be more of kind of an antagonist. They're supposed to be not necessarily full-on bad guys, but their intentions for helping Thorin and Bilbo are not exactly virtuous, if that makes sense. So, and just how kind of like, especially in recent times, how the whole thing in Lake Town is kind of treated like, oh, it's all about politics, and it kind of goes back and forth, and I'll get into that a little bit later. And then even just like, despite my how much I love Smaug, I don't like how they maybe treated him in a later sequence in the same movie where he's easily outsmarted and stuff, and also the ending, because this movie abruptly ends when it's like, oh, we're about to get this scene that's straight from the book. It's one of the most memorable scenes. It's got a whole chapter in the book. Then suddenly, boom, it ends. Roll credits. So it's like, seriously? So that's a bit frustrating. But all in all, it's still an enjoyable movie, and I love it. In terms of ranking, again, I like the last film a little bit better just because of all the things I discussed in that one. But this one, is still a good movie. I probably would say, if I was to give them a ranking, I probably would say the last movie would probably be about a 7, maybe an 8. Let's just say like 7.5 for Unexpected Journey. So for this one, so a 7.5 for this one. I would probably give this one about a 7, which is shocking to some, because critics and everybody loved this one a whole lot more than the last one, but I tend to like the first one a little bit more than I do the second one. So, but that's just my opinion. If you got an opinion or you got some thoughts, please don't start arguments or anything like that. But if you want to comment down below your thoughts on that, be sure to share. Be sure to do that as well. I'm just starting, guys. This is just the second review for this channel, and so your support is much appreciated. So if you want to like, subscribe, comment, and share this video, come in and take part in this. And if you want to hear a little bit more detail about this movie and stuff, and I'll get into a little bit more of kind of my overall thoughts on some different plot threads and some character development, and even just kind of like how I kind of may see God and some Christian views into this as well. Be sure to check out my kind of full review, which I'll place the link in the description down below. So anyway, I hope to see you guys in that one, and you may end up getting a little bit lucky this time. Instead of waiting a whole week, you may get to see my review on this guy a whole lot sooner than you would, just because it's Christmas time. And also, I have a lot more time on my hands since it's Christmas time. So anyway, I will catch you guys later, and hopefully I will see you guys as well in the spoiler review of The Desolation of Smaug. So talk to you later.